I'm Jim Carney.
And I'm Linda Hirsch.
And this is Edcast, a program created and produced by educators for everyone interested in education.
Mayor Bloomberg has made many assertions about education in New York City. He claims that New York City students are making great gains in math and reading, that the achievement gap between minority and white and Asian students is closing, and that New York City graduation rates are taking a great leap forward. And yet, we are left with conflicting data, and they do not often paint the rosy picture that the mayor has. Today we speak with Sally Friedman, author of The Education and Deconstruction of Mr. Bloomberg, and parent advocate Noah Gotbaum, to examine the state of education in New York City today.
Later on in the program, I'll speak with a young man who is an alumni of a special charter school-based program for high school and college students. And I'll visit a public hearing on a proposed charter middle school in Washington Heights. But we begin with Linda and her guests in the studio.
My guests today are Sally Friedman and Noah Gotbaum. Sally Friedman is the author of The Education and Deconstruction of Mr. Bloomberg, How the Mayor's Educational and Real Estate Development Policies Affected New Yorkers Between 2002 and 2009. Noah Gotbaum is a parent advocate and the president of Community Education Council 3 on the Upper West Side and Central and West Harlem. Welcome to Edcast, and thank you for joining us. Let me start out with the key question. After all these years of mayoral control of education, have we made any real progress?
We've gone backwards in a lot of ways.
How have we gone backwards?
Due to the policies imposed by the mayor.
Which policies do you see as the most destructive, or the ones that are setting us back? And do you agree with that we've gone back?
Well, your question was, were there any benefits? And
Has there been any progress?
I'll answer the question because I believe that we have gone backwards in many ways. I do think there has been progress in I would say 3 areas. One, and these are not results, these are more what's changed in terms of overall. One, the mayor has brought attention to the public school system. He came in saying, I want to be an education mayor, saying that the current system needed to be improved. That's very significant, and that made quite a difference in terms of bringing attention. Two, he paid teachers more, which was critically important. You want to bring good teachers in and retain them, you got to pay them. And he led that charge. And three, he was helpful, I think, in bringing in significant amounts of private sector funds. Now, most of that, almost all of it, have gone into the charter school movement, which I believe has not only not helped public schools, has hurt it, but he has brought attention to public education system.
And what do you think are the policies that have set us back?
Standardized testing more than ever. And the inequality is produced by private monies coming in. It may improve quality of education in some schools, but then again, the public schools are deprived of the funds that would have gone to them.
And part of the mayor's policies, of course, has been to increase the number of charter schools. He certainly has been a strong advocate for lifting the ceiling on the numbers that were permitted and having more and more of them. So let's talk about charter schools, because you really cannot look in the newspaper these days or anywhere and hear about charters. Why are they so controversial? You mentioned one factor, the money. What makes them such a lightning rod?
Well, a number of factors make them lightning rods. One, they were originally conceived to be incubators, freed up from regulation and to experiment. And those policies were meant to be brought on to the best of breed, to brought onto our public school system. They haven't become that. Instead, they've essentially become an alternate system, which are draining resources. How does that happen? We have 4% of our kids in New York City, of 1.1 million kids, so that's 40,000 kids in charter schools. 96% of the kids are going to traditional public schools, and yet the resources, the energy, the effort is going into these charter schools. In our district, when a charter school moves in, it essentially means that the district school is moving out. You're creating separate and unequal. And part of that is based on the charter school ethos, and which is compete. Well, when you have one small sliver of these schools, which are competing with tens of millions of dollars of private money, and then you have the rest of the kids who don't have that support, and not only don't have that support, but are getting resources bled from them, what you have is a system of a few winners and many losers. And the 96% of our kids in our district schools, our public schools, are losing. And that is a major, major issue. And if you look now, the IBO just came out with funding. For years, the charter school advocates have been saying, we don't get the same amount of money. We're doing it more with less. It's a lie.
They get more.
They're getting significantly more. And
What do you say to this? Yeah.
Yeah, the original goal partly was of charter schools was to give parents more choice in the choice of schools. If their local public school was of poor quality, they had a choice to send their kids to charter school. But that's a false idea, because it's not an actual choice. In New York City, at least, the charter schools accept students through a lottery system. So if the students lose the lottery, they're forced to go to a school perceived as inferior.
So do you think when parents seem eager to put their kids in a charter school, and sometimes they do, there seems to be an eagerness, is that a misguided assessment of what the charter school has to
It
offer?
might
Or
be.
is it true that some of the public schools are not that good? I mean,
Some charter schools are bad, some are good, just like public schools. The problem is the charter schools can also pick and choose their students. They can favor, they do say they favor students who live in the local district, and they can limit the overcrowding within their walls by limiting the number of students in each class, and public schools can't. They have
and
to
they
accept
tend
any
to take
students
fewer
apply.
English language learner students and fewer special needs students. I
Exactly, that
believe
too.
the data on that is very
Significantly.
strong,
Yes.
which I think would have some effect on test scores. And
just like
collectively.
the claim that charter schools are getting less money, which again, and that doesn't even include the private money.
Independent Budget Office says the charter schools receive $649 more per student than regular public schools.
What that doesn't account for, Linda, is the private funds that are coming in, which are significant. It also doesn't account for the fact that the charter schools are not educating the same kids. So special needs kids require more funding.
Right, and they're getting less.
And they're getting less. So that difference, and that also doesn't account for the fact that where our public school kids have lost funding, the charter funding has increased. So that $600 was up until 2008. Now you're looking at a $2,000 to $3,000 gap. But the fact of the matter is that if they were educating all the kids, then a lottery would make some sense, and that the argument that we just have to build more charter schools and increase them would have some credence. The problem is they're not educating the same kids.
Have we seen instances where schools have really been forced to take in charters where they felt they really didn't have the space?
Many times. In Harlem,
Okay, what's happened? Just
Eva Moskowitz
briefly,
is a charter school chain
Yeah.
advocate, and she is many times
Oh, that's
pushed
right. There was a big
to have
controversy about
charter
that.
schools open in public schools
So what
within the
happened
same
there?
building.
Essentially, what's going on is that there isn't enough space, and what's going on is that the mayor, and this is part of the charter, in order to kind of take everyone's eye off the fact that test scores aren't really improving, that school isn't really improving, he is pitting parents against each other. And in our district, we essentially have a competition. When a charter school comes in, for the most part, especially one that is as powerful as Success Charter, it really means eviction for our public school kids. I'm not exaggerating. What I'm saying, at PS 241, for example, the city tried to close the school down, even though it was in one of the top 15% performing schools. They took the kids in PS 241, 3 classrooms, because Ms. Moskowitz wanted to expand there beyond what her charter said, and took the kids from 241 and moved them down into the basement without the assent of the principal.
Martin Luther King High School closed in Midtown Manhattan, and 6 schools were opened in that building, and they all had to share the cafeteria and the gym. 6
And why
schools.
do you think this is allowed? I mean, you say she's powerful.
It's
or someone
allowed. Yeah.
I mean, you've looked at Mayor
The
Bloomberg's
reason-
policies from 2002 on. What's the trend?
The original reason this is allowed is Joel Klein had the goal of efficiency. He wanted to use up space that was idle in any school that was underpopulated with students. If it's 90% capacity, we can fit another school in there, and that way we don't have to build a whole new extra school building just for those kids. So why don't we have a co-tenancy? So he wanted to
Jim
use that
Carney-
vital space in schools.
Jim Carney had the opportunity to speak with a student who had been involved with the KIPP Academy, not as a student at KIPP, but as a person who was able to benefit from a tutorial program that they offered. So let's take a look and just see what Angel Ramos has to say.
Angel Ramos attended the KIPP Charter Scholars Program while attending high school and college. We chatted in the new Lehman College Journalism newsroom.
The KIPP Scholars Program began, if I'm not mistaken, 3 years ago. It started in the KIPP Academy, which is located in the Bronx. It's the first KIPP school ever created. And basically, it is a program that started off maybe 15 students, and you go into KIPP 3 hours a week, mandatory 3 hours a week throughout the entire semester.
And how was your experience going through the program? What do you think you got out of it?
When you go there, you have every counselor helps you. They come in with their specific knowledge. We have writing coaches, we have math coaches, history coaches, but all serve as counselors.
And when you talk to your friends who were not in the program, who went through a more traditional public education in high school and in junior high school, how did you think your education, your experience at KIPP's compared to theirs?
Basically, I for myself, growing up in the public institutions, public elementary school and such, I saw the advantages of coming into KIPP. And once being a member of KIPP, friends noticing that our equipment, basically being provided computers and up-to-date laptops, brand new laptops, the facilities having actual rooms where we can study and have a peace of mind, quietness, rather than just being in a classroom hearing a bunch of students or anything. So it was more one-on-one where the teachers can really focus in on your needs and basically walk with you hand in hand every step of the way.
What sort of advice would you give to people who are not in favor of charter schools? They say that it siphons money off of the traditional public school system and lessens the education of children who can't get into charter schools.
I would like to say for those that do not believe in a charter school, or are not aware or are against charter schools, I believe it is the future. I don't necessarily agree with their lottery process, instilling money and then having to cram students in, in schools. But it's a family. By the time you graduate, you have, like we're doing high school work in junior high school. You're being taken on trips, to expand your knowledge. And the most important thing about these charter schools that I want to stress is 51% academics, 49% character. Not only do these charter schools want to basically teach you and give you all the necessary tools for college and high school and such, but they want to mature, they want to grow up, they want to groom young men and young women.
He has some positive things to say about his experience. He certainly speaks highly of the teachers, and that brings me to the teacher topic. Teachers seem to be really being demonized right now, and so are charter school teachers superior to the regular public? It's a loaded question, obviously, but what do you think? I mean, he speaks very highly about his teachers, a sense of family. I think it's very compelling for a student to feel a sense of family. Are charter schools better at providing a sense of family than a public school? I mean, let's...
One of the things he pointed out was they have much better resources than he was used to.
Okay.
And that's a given. And if I'm a parent, yeah, I'm gonna want that. I'm gonna want better resources for my kids. I'm gonna want smaller class sizes. I'm gonna want a broader curriculum. I'm gonna want access to that gym. I'm not gonna want to have my kids squeezed. So the resources are significant, and that's a good reason. And a lot of these charters, they have some significantly excellent programs, but a lot of them are based on programs that should be strung out and run out to all of our kids.
Yeah, another reason for the financial inequality is empowered principals. The Bloomberg administration allowed principals more power, I think starting in his second term, possibly. So he gave principals more control over budgets for their schools, hiring and firing of teachers, and in doing so, he put the salary item in the financial records under the principal's control. And principals are going to want to hire lower salary teachers for that reason, because there's only so much money to go around to spend on various things in the budget that teachers need to spend, that the principal needs to spend on. So then the principals had to really think about what they needed to spend the money on. What was most important, buying books and supplies or hiring experienced teachers.
I just read this morning that there's a formula that's not quite as obvious as the most expensive teachers have to go. That there's a formula that's an average kind of citywide formula, but it's going to be changed and they want to try and experiment. But you're saying that if you're a school principal and your budget, no, this may have an impact then on the seniority issue that's making all the headlines today. The mayor's decision to ask the state to overturn seniority as a means of laying people off. Last one in, first one out. What do you say to that?
I think this is a red herring.
Okay.
Okay. Just like the charter school issue is a red herring. It's a small percentage. The bottom line is that we need to improve. We need to really focus on how do we make that achievement gap decrease. In 10 years, where the mayor's had almost complete control, that gap hasn't budged. Our test scores, which have been shown to be said to be a miracle when the mayor was running, and the graduation rates, miracles, they have been shown by New York State Education Department to be phony, that they really haven't even moved, and that now we still have, after 10 years of this control, 3 out of 4 kids who are graduating are not they're not prepared to go on to college. So instead of saying, how do I actually fix the system? How do I focus on better educating these kids, which costs money? It means smaller class sizes. It means a full curriculum. It means experienced teachers. He's saying the opposite. He's looking at it like a business, and that there are winners and losers.
I do want to say that while he downplayed the need for experienced teachers, he did feel that his own experience was relevant to extending term limits for him. And I say that not facetiously. I say that because in some part of him, I think we all acknowledge that experience matters in some way. That I like to see a doctor who's been on the job a little bit. I like to go to a teacher who's been on the job a little bit. I think it's disingenuous to pretend that experience doesn't matter. I mean, but that goes back to the issue, however, of encouraging a cadre of younger teachers via things like the New York City Teaching Fellows and Teach for America. Are these teacher programs, are these teachers running in opposition to our public school teachers in some way, or do they enhance in some way? But
the Teach for America teachers take a 6-week crash course at best, and I saw a video clip the other week of testimony from one Teach for America trainee who was told all sorts of teaching methods, but then when he got in the actual classroom and got a mentor, the mentor told him all the opposite things. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Teach for America, charter school movement, measuring performance. These are good things, but they are supplements. They are things that can help to enhance. Instead, what's happened is that because they're not focusing, and because it actually takes effort and money to improve our school system, basically the education department, Bloomberg, is relying on these pieces as panaceas, and they're not. They don't work. They're not solving our system.
Why do you think so much private money is pouring into charter schools rather than into public schools? Why have charter schools become the cause célèbre of hedge fund managers? Why don't, maybe you can't answer this, but what do you think? Why don't they want to be the angel of a good public school?
The root cause of all this is money, and the government doesn't want to pay the irksomely expensive pension and health care costs of retiring teachers. And in order to save money, it's a huge cost-cutting way of saving money is to have charters which are funded by private money. So the government doesn't, for the most part, doesn't pay for charter school expenses.
I'm a former hedge fund manager.
Okay, I hope you're contributing to a public school.
I'm a former fund manager, and they will tell you that these are public schools. What they're doing is focusing their funds on a very, very small segment. They feel like they can make huge
a difference.
differences. They can guarantee the smaller class sizes, the input into the teachers, the effort that they get from their own private schools. And they can actually, they feel like they can make a difference. A lot of these programs, they trumpet, 100% of our kids graduate. We're doing all this great in test scores. KIPP is a perfect example. They lose 50% of their kids between 6th grade and 12th grade. And so when they say 100% of your kids graduate, but there are only 50% left,
That's a little sleight of hand
They
there.
the kids might not drop out. The school counsels the unmotivated kids to leave. So
Right,
it's
and
not
they can't
exactly
ask
the
them
same
to leave,
thing.
which the public
Yes.
school cannot do. They can tell them to leave or...
Exactly.
Look, they're setting up a gifted, in some ways, a gifted and talented program for usually in communities where they haven't been as accessible, and that's
And it's worth, I would think, trying something different when you
that's
had
fine.
failure.
But that's not just like Teach for America, where you have teachers who go in who should and then leave after 2 years.
Right.
I mean, what is that? That doesn't help
Well,
the schools that they're teaching in, and it doesn't help the teaching profession.
we know everything that's been done wrong and the policies that have not been positive, but what do you think should be done to close that achievement gap?
Well, I mean, the floodgates have already opened on opening charter schools and other special programs around the city, so you can't really.
But let's say you could do it all over again. Let's say you could do it the right way. What would the right way be? What would make our schools better?
One, you have to maintain the CFE funding, okay? Class
That's the
size.
campaign for fiscal equity.
Class size matters, okay? You can't tell me that in charter schools, which can cap their class size, in private schools, which cap their class size, that
That it doesn't
works
matter.
there, but in public schools, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It does matter. Teachers say it. Two, instead of going after our teachers and basically putting them, saying, you know what, you can be gone in a second, we should be enriching and supporting our teachers. And thirdly, we really have to focus on a broad range of programs. Instead of cutting early education, we need to be investing more in it. It is about money and resources, and that's not what a lot of the hedge funders and a lot of the private sector folks want to admit.
Sally, last word?
Yeah, equal funding, absolutely. And also better financial management of the charter schools, because they're not subject to the same financial rules as public schools. So if you tighten the rules, I think.
Any hope for the new chancellor? Do you think she can have a positive impact?
I think I'm one of the petitioners to deny the waiver, because, full disclosure, but I think that essentially Kathy Black was put in there to allow Mike Bloomberg to do what he wants, and he is. But that said, all I can do is hope that they'll listen more to the community.
So bottom line is, we don't, from your perspective and from your amply researched book and your own looking at what's happening, we don't really see the real positive changes that I think that the mayor promised us under mayoral control. I guess we have to see if things will improve. I thank you both so much for joining us. Noah Gotbaum, Sally Friedman, thank you so much for appearing on the program. I think maybe we'll have to have you back again, because there's a lot more to discuss here. Recently, Jim Carney went to a public hearing in Upper Manhattan where parents and others testified regarding a proposed charter school for Washington Heights. Let's take a look.
In what may have been the shortest public hearing in city history, about a dozen parents and students all testified in favor of a new KIPP's charter school in Washington Heights. After the meeting, I spoke with a few parents and students.
I'm here tonight because KIPP has done amazing work for my daughter and for my nephew. I mean, it got to the point where my son was going on to college and my daughter was going on to middle school, and they were both in Catholic school. And so I had to make the choice between whether I'm going to send him to college or keep him in Catholic school until I found KIPP. And it has proven to be the best choice that I could have ever made.
And how did the regular public school experience in the lower grades compare to what you got at KIPP?
I'm not gonna lie, I got picked on, fighting, got in trouble a lot. That's why my mom's looked to put me in KIPP to help me change all of that and become a better person.
At first it was really hard because of the long hours and all the homework and strict teachers and everything. But once I graduated and I went through the process, I saw how tough it was, I realized that it was all worth it. Because now I'm actually much more confident about myself, and I have confidence in myself that I know I'll succeed at anything I want to do.
The charter school controversy will continue to generate strong feelings on both sides of the debate, and we will continue to cover it here at Edcast. But now, let's go back to the studio for this week's Ed Bites.
Welcome back to this edition of Ed Bites.
Americans received more bad news about their children's education. Based on the results of the most recent national exam, most 4th, 8th, and 12th grade students are not doing well in the areas of science, technology, and mathematics. This is leading to concerns about the nation's future competitiveness in world markets, with so few students ranking at the top. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan observed that, quote, "The next generation will not be ready to be world-class inventors, doctors, and engineers."
And now for an unusual proposal for improving student math skills: exercise. Education Week reports on a study from the Georgia Prevention Institute that found that regular exercise helped sedentary, overweight children ages 7 to 11 improve their math abilities. The researchers found that the more exercise the students received, the more their brain activity increased in the region of the brain associated with complex cognitive behaviors and decision-making. Yet another reason to turn off the TV and the computer screen.
I think it's particularly ironic, based on what we heard in today's show, that this is true, and more school students in New York City are getting pushed out of their exercise spaces and their gymnasiums.
Seems like the wrong approach, right?
Yeah, it's ironic. Educators are latching on to a framework originally recommended for students with learning disabilities and using it more broadly. Called Response to Intervention, or RTI, it involves early identification of learning problems and the use of interventions to address these problems before they become intractable. The approach uses screening to identify struggling students and then applies research-based interventions. Students are closely monitored to chart their progress. The method is now being successfully used at all school levels and in many subject areas.
Just who postpones going to college and why? The stereotype of the student delaying college for a year is of a white, affluent student taking time to gain more work or life experience. And yet the reality is that most students who delay college are economically disadvantaged. They are more likely to be male and part of lower-income families. They may also feel less prepared for college with weaker academic backgrounds. Having a child or marrying before college is another significant factor in postponing enrollment.
That's definitely something we see here at CUNY and at Lehman College in particular. Our students tend to be older, they tend to have jobs and families, so it's definitely true in this case.
So they put off going.
Well, that does it for this edition of Edcast. Thanks for watching.
Till next time, class dismissed.